Okay, we're here with Greg Pelican, General Manager of Naples Cyclery, today talking about the importance of bike fit and custom bikes. So let's get into this, Greg. I've been cycling for decades. I love riding, especially road bikes, and I know you do too. You've been doing this a long time. You've been bike fitting for over 25 years, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So let's start out with the importance of bike fitting. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, of like maybe it's not necessary, maybe it's only for people who ride all the time. Do I need a bike fit? So obviously you're a big fan of bike fit. I am too, but let's talk about maybe why someone could use a good bike fit.
Yeah, so I think cycling is so much different than many sports. You look at running, swimming, ball sports. Like I played soccer and I was a big track runner. So in those sports, your body can do whatever you want it to do. And of course, there's technique to do it correctly. But you can basically put your body in that position to get the proper technique. A bike is much different. So it's a fixed thing. We have to get on that bike, and whether it's right or wrong, we have to conform to that bike space, and that might help us or it might hurt us. And that's why bike fitting is so critical to both comfort and performance. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And I think the other thing is even custom bikes, right? So now we have an option for custom bikes, and a custom bike, not only can we get all the fitting side of it right, but then from the components and the look of it, we can offer that as well. And we're excited.
Yeah. So the thing about cycling is that you are forced to have this interface with the bicycle. Other sports, you're out there, you can change your position for, like, say, batting or shooting free throws or whatever. But with cycling, you have the synergy with the bike so that if it's off, you may not even know it at first, but it could be robbing you of energy, causing pain, et cetera. So you need to get that fit really dialed in for your best performance and best experience on the bike. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about the manufacturers are making bikes in, let's say, 1-inch increments between the sizes, and you may be on the right size bike, you may not be. But the bottom line is, if we took 3 people, let's just say, that are 6 foot, you could have 3 different inseams. Like someone could have really long legs and a short torso, or they could have short legs and a long torso. Like in that situation, they may not even need the same size bike. And for example, like one of the key things and where we all start is with the seat height. And the seat height is directly related to your inseam. So, all of those things could dictate to a different size bike or a different setup on the bike.
Right, right. So, most people, when they think about bike fit, is let's raise the seat for me, or let's raise the handlebars, right? But that's just the basic starting point. And depending on your body type, you may benefit from a completely different bike size than someone else who's your exact same height, depending on your, femur length and like arm length and length of your torso. All these things come into play. And so you have expertise in that. You have over 25 years of experience in bike fitting.
Yeah.
And so maybe can you share like either a personal story or maybe someone who benefited from a bike fit experience and said, wow, what a difference.
So I had a customer come in and, there were lots of things that I changed in his bike fit as far as seat height and stem size and position on the bike. But the one thing that he had a problem with is what we call knee tracking, where he was pedaling bow-legged, and it wasn't really, his fault. So think about someone who has a really kind of wide shoulders, wide hips, right?
Right.
So their stance on the pedals naturally needs to be wider
Right.
than someone who has, smaller shoulders or smaller hips. So with the pedals that we're locking into on the bike, if we're clipped in, then we're forcing our feet in a position that's too inward, which forces your knees out. So different manufacturers actually have pedals with different axle length, And
Right.
so by changing to a pedal with a wider axle length, it solved the problem. And he said that was like the biggest change he's ever experienced in like 20 years of riding, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So it takes someone with a lot of experience doing bike fits, not just someone who just gets kind of thrown into it using some tools and a computer and say, "Let me bike fit you," because you're telling me some pretty subtle things like who knew that pedals come with different length axles in it, right?
Yeah.
So you know all these tricks of the trade and you know which manufacturers make certain things that are going to help. So
Sure.
let me ask you, how did you get started doing bike fitting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. So I was in around 1990. I started bike racing, and I was an avid racer. I just like took to it, loved it, and at the time I was living near Cannondale's headquarters in Bethel, Connecticut, and so I raced on a Cannondale, and it was aluminum oversized bike, and that was kind of the thing back then. But there was a local shop called Bethel Cycle, and they had the brand Serrata, which was a custom
Right.
bike,
I
right?
remember them, yeah.
And so, so this guy Ben Serrata from upstate New York, he was building bikes for the 7-Eleven team
Right.
and the Coors Light team,
Yep.
and so he was building some of the best racing bikes in the world. So he actually had apprenticed over in Europe to be a frame builder. When he came back and set up shop in upstate New York, he his whole sort of philosophy is that everyone should be entitled to a custom bike. Like if you're going to ride a bike, you should have a custom bike, no compromises. So he set out like the first bike fitting protocol, like schools and kind of, he actually created machines. He had something called the Serrata size cycle, which was an infinitely adjustable bike jig. And so you could put a rider on there and adjust all these different angles till you found the correct position.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing that in some bike shops back in the 90s.
Yeah, and so I actually have still one in my garage, which is crazy because I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe it's sentimental to me. But so anyway, long story short, I bought a custom Serrata from Bethel Cycle, and I was blown away by how much it helped performance on the bike, my performance and the comfort and even my enjoyment of just like loving the ride. It was just night and day. And then about 10 years later, I actually bought Bethel Cycle. And so by that point, I totally understood like the performance benefits of having a bike fit correctly and also that sort of technology. And of course, I became a very strong Serrata dealer, and I went through all of their fitting and advanced fitting classes, and I was trained by Ben Serrata. And then since then, been doing this many years. I've been trained in Retool and Trek Precision Fit, and a couple other fitting schools over the years. So yeah, lots of experience there.
Yeah, great. So maybe you could tell us some trends or things over the years that you've seen in bike fitting, innovations, kind of like like the history of your own bike fitting. I mean, you're touching on a bit with Serrata and the jig and how it was an actual bicycle that you could adjust the tube lengths and all these kinds of things.
Right.
So how's the technology advanced, say, from then to now? Like, what are some new things that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, the best, I think the thing that really has helped customers a lot is using motion capture and videos to share with that rider what they look like. So I have no one argue with me about making a change when they take a look at themselves on the bike. They're like, the seat's really low. Well, I mean, it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
And so we change it to make it where it should be. And they take a look at themselves and they're like, yeah, I get it. Or even if they're on like a really small bike. So early on, I was using digital video, like when it was just becoming available in the late 90s. I had worked for Fujifilm, so I was involved in imaging. And so for many years, I've been working with digital video, making that part of my bike fitting. And today, there's a great company called Dartfish that works with motion capture for sports. And they even have things like AI with hockey and baseball, where the coaches, it's basically predicting where the play is going to go. Some really cool technology. But So I use Dartfish imaging right now. And so as part of a bike fit, I will send the customer videos before and after, or some key positions or something that I'm trying to reinforce. So I think that like that's the biggest difference. There was there is a company that makes a fitting bike that is actually adjustable by computer while the cyclist is riding. And I was involved in sort of the development of that. And I don't have that right now at our store, but I have used it, and it's great technology. So basically, Guru had a system called DFU, or a dynamic fitting unit. And so great technology where it was basically a fitting bike that was controlled by computer. So I could have someone riding in their current position sort of as a benchmark, and then change it and optimize it. And while they're riding, say if you're videoing this, you can see the effect of someone getting into the right position and feeling that and recording those positions. And I was actually involved with Cannondale as a consultant for bike fitting, because I had one of the first DFUs in the world in my shop, and they ended up buying Guru, the bike fitting unit of that. So a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. So I remember Guru made carbon bikes.
Yeah.
And were they custom bikes?
They were. They definitely could be. And so we were a big Guru dealer at Bethel Cycle when I owned the shop.
Yeah.
And that's how we got involved with the bike fitting. So they were kind of like next generation of what Ben Serrato was doing, because they were one of the first companies to offer custom carbon, and they also sort of evolved the fitting bike in the process. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're looking at just the technology coupled with your experience together, right, is going to give people a great bike fit experience. And well, I like what you said about how if you're using some video, it gives feedback to the customer, because they're going to see right away, oh, I like that. That looks better, right?
Yeah.
Because you can tell someone, oh, that's going to work better for you. But if they see, for example, that their back is hunched or something like that, they're going to give you feedback as well. So it's an experience between the bike buyer and the fitter, right?
Absolutely. Right. And so, one company that's used a lot is a company called Retool, and I think the limitation with Retool is it's drawing stick figures.
Okay.
So you can look at a report with a stick figure, and you can look at some numbers. It's a measuring device.
Yeah.
But when that cyclist looks at that, doesn't mean anything to them. They don't see their body. They don't see their muscles bent and curved and contorted to get into that position. And so I really feel actual video, something from like Dartfish, is better than Retool in sharing that information with the customer.
Okay. So you just customize what works best, what the technology is out there.
Absolutely.
You're not set on one particular thing.
No.
You're not paid to use a particular tool. You're like, here's what works the best. I'm going to pick and choose what's going to work best, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I've been doing for 25 years. And the reality is I have to look at it from an efficiency point of view. I want to use what works best and really gets to the solution that I'm looking for quickly, or, I don't want to waste time doing it, essentially.
Right. Okay. So at Naples Cyclery, you help people with your current stock bikes there get the best fit they can on that stock bike.
Yeah.
And you also sometimes suggest a custom fit, right? And that's always an option, right? So you're carrying a brand right now called Envy,
Yes.
which is ENVE, which is really kind of taken the bike world by storm. Like there's pros using their wheels. Like it's a great company.
Absolutely.
And they're out of Utah, I believe, right?
They are.
It's American made.
Yeah.
And they're really embracing more of the custom bike concept, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think they've taken the whole custom bike approach and brought it to a new level. So when I used to sell steel or titanium Serrato bikes, I would do my best to spec all the other components other than the drivetrain group with NV parts, because they were a leader in carbon technology. Right. So I would have NV handlebars, NV stem, NV seat post, and NV fork even potentially.
Yeah.
So, and then of course the wheel. So it really looked great. And now that NV has a carbon frame solution, it's just organic. It's natural to like have the whole total solution. And to be building that in Utah is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to be carrying the line. And in fact, they're building a bike for me right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw your Instagram post on the new bike, and the paint job looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So there's times when someone can really benefit from a full custom measured bike, and sometimes people will fit perfectly on a stock bike.
Right. Yeah.
So there could be certain body types that are going to benefit more from a custom bike, or if you just want a custom bike and tweak little changes here and there, even if a stock bike will work just fine for you, like why not get the custom bike? I've had custom bikes before. This is back in the steel days.
Right.
And I went with like a shorter top tube, different head angles, and I did notice a difference. Like if you've been riding for a while, you can notice those subtle differences. And even if you don't have a lot of experience, so a bike fitter who has the experience can tell you, hey, you need this particular custom bike, or you need the stock bike, which has this measurement. Otherwise, you're going to get on it and be oblivious and not know that you could be enjoying just a better fit bike.
Yeah. So one of the things with a custom bike, think about it from a performance point of view, is that your balance on the bike when you're cornering fast or you're descending is essential. So if you have too much weight to the back of the bike or the front of the bike, you're not going to be able to go around corners as fast or descend safely. So it really comes down to, for me, like it's a matter of balance. It's a matter of safety. And so sometimes you can achieve that on a stock bike by changing the stem or changing the position. And sometimes you can't. And when you can, absolutely, custom is a great solution.
Yeah.
But even through bike fitting, whether it's on a stock bike or on a custom bike, it's really important to get that balance right and to get the rider centered on the bike.
Yeah. And
that's critical to performance. The other thing about custom is that today custom is not any more expensive than buying like an S-Works, bike, for example, or a top level Trek. So basically for the same amount of money, you get a custom designed frame and you get it to look however you want. So you can get, if you want a faded paint job, if you want it matte, glossy combination, you can use whatever colors you want. So it's a totally unique bike, something that's designed for you. But more than that, you get the chance to pick the stem size you need, the handlebar size you need, the wheel type that you need, the gearing that you need, the crank length. So all these variables, like if you bought that $15,000 bike and you needed to change the $1,000 bar stem, it's more expensive. I mean, you're almost you are better from the start getting exactly what you need. And when you think about handlebars today, and you look at the pro tour riders right now, so many people are using narrower handlebars with a flare. So when they're sprinting, they can jump, but they're more aero on the top. And most of those riders are actually more aero on the hoods now, tucked in. And so if you really care about performance, you want to look at those different bar types and optimize it. And a company like NB has been leading the way with those type of bar types.
Yeah. That's such a good point, is that anyone who buys a new bike, no matter what the price, you're going to be changing something on it, probably, unless it's like a beach cruiser.
Yeah.
And even then, maybe you might put like a more comfy seat on there. So that's a great point. Like, why not just go custom? Because most likely you're going to be getting a couple of custom parts on that bike anyway to kind of suit your needs, right?
Yeah. So an example, Colorado Bob, friend of ours, just bought an NV Melee. So that's their stock bike. But we build that from the frame up. And he's from Colorado most of the time. And so we were looking at the NV wheel choices, and they have the 4.5, which is sort of an all around kind of wheel that Pajacar is using most of the time. There's also the 6.7 that is perfect for Florida because it's a little deeper, a little heavier, but faster, like if you're sustained speed. And then they have a 3.4, which is the lightest for the mountain. So Bob got the 3.4, and on my bike, I'm going to get the 6.7. So it really comes down to where are you racing? Where are you riding? What do you want that bike to perform like?
Right. Okay. That's cool. Colorado Bob. I like how people have these nicknames, right? Spends most of his time there. But as we know, Naples, Florida is a great place to ride. A lot of people just keep coming back here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And apparently a great place to live.
Apparently, right. So I've heard.
Yeah.
So tell us about how people can go to Naples Cyclery, get the bike fit. Like, what's the process? How do you start it?
Yeah, pretty simple. You can just call the store or email greg@naplescyclery.com, and I'll schedule a bike fit. Bike fitting costs $225. It takes about an hour and a half.
Okay.
And if you do buy a new bike from us, and that's the reason for the fit, we apply the cost of the fitting to a new bike purchase. And I'm usually booked about a week to a week and a half in advance.
Okay.
My calendar's filled up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Now, can you do some of this online as well? Let's say I'm in New York and I want to buy a custom bike from Naples Cyclery, or I want to buy even a stock bike from there, and I want it some sort of a fitting. Is this something that can be done through distance, or is it better to be actually live in person doing it?
I would say if you're getting a new bike, our philosophy is fit first.
Yeah.
And you really have to see the rider cycling. I love to look at them on their current bike and see if there's something we can improve.
Yeah.
And then if there's, let's say, not a stock bike that's going to fit them, we have a retool sizing bike. And so that's infinitely adjustable.
Okay.
So I'll have the rider ride that. And especially when we're talking about custom, where, we're not limited to 10 increments, 10 millimeter increments, let's say, in stem size or frame size. So we can dial that. If the rider needs 5 millimeters or 4 millimeters, with the sizing bike, we'll figure out what is perfect.
Yeah.
And then with an NV custom bike, we fill out that fitting information with them. They design the frame.
Okay.
They send back the drawings of what it's going to look like and how it's going to be designed. And then the rider signs off on it, and I do too.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really worth the time and the small amount of money to get that custom bike fit, or even get the custom bike itself, because you're going to be spending so many hours on the bike, enjoying it so much. Take the extra time and dial it in, but with a pro, and you're going to just love cycling so much better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I want to thank you for helping me out with this podcast. And I think the takeaway message I want to share is that, if you want the ultimate cycling experience, I would definitely give custom a try.
Yeah.
And we have that solution for you.
Awesome. So great. So Greg Pelican, Naples Cyclery, come in for a bike fit or even a custom bike, and you're going to enjoy it.